Historic Schaefferstown's board, I'd like to thank the commissioners for the availability of that grant that gave us the opportunity to produce a video and market it, and as well do the restoration of this. And we have two presenters to tell you all about those two issues. Dr. Pat Gibble, she's our archaeologist at Historic Schaefferstown, and has done some wonderful archaeology work there, but had the wonderful idea to produce a video, and she'll tell you about that. And the sketch that was also the preservation and the work that had to be done on it to bring it back to life was supervised by Jan Taylor, who's one of our docents in the museum and very active in other things as well, including our annual Cherry Fair and the Harvest Fair and so many other things Jan does. So with that, let me turn it over to Pat and
show you the video. I'm just going to briefly tell you why we got started in this direction. The most important thing for small communities and their historical societies is to advertise and market and get people out there knowing about their history and drawing people in. And the opportunity to get this grant to make the video was right down the line. We wanted to make a documentary about Schaefferstown, and we also wanted to market Schaefferstown to draw people into the community, more tourism, etc. And so we began by organizing a committee, and the committee was made up of 5 members, some historians, some board members, and we began to pursue looking for a videographer. And we asked for 3 different bids, and we're astounded to find out that the top 2 bids wanted $100,000 and $45,000 to make a video. The 3rd bid was someone that I knew. He had made a video for Mount Gretna, and he was very skilled and very reasonable, and so his name is Jim Forney. And we talked to him, and he of course wanted to know what we wanted in the video. So as I said, we wanted it to be a documentary about the town and its citizens, and we also wanted it to be something that would bring people into the community, to show many of the events and activities that Historic Schaefferstown Incorporated did throughout the year in order to draw people in. And
the progress. So there's before and after photos, and I have these as well.
So it was almost a blank slate when you started?
That's the backside, actually. So what they did was they took photos before and after of the front, and these are the front, and this is before, and this is after. Thank you. After, and then they took pictures kind of with lighting to the side to show how wrinkled it was. They took pictures of the back because it originally had wood backing in its frame. And this is very typical of older things, is their wood backing. Wood is very acidic, and so it will cause things to age very quickly. So these 2 pictures we had on display when we had our tavern lunch a few weeks ago. So a little bit of backstory to the Brader sketch. About almost 4 years ago, Diane Wenger and I were putting together a book for Images of America. It's a series that Arcadia Publishing does, and we did it for Schaefferstown and Heidelberg Township. And Diane was poking around the museum, and she came across this. Now, it wasn't as fancily framed. In fact, there was no mat at all. It was right against the glass, which is also supposed to be quite bad. And, you know, at first glance, you wouldn't really take a second look at it because it's brown and faded. But if you really look closely, which Diane did, and she started to do some research on it. There's a heck of a lot of detail in there. So the backstory behind the artist is just as interesting as looking at the details in the photos. The backstory is that this man, Ferdinand Brader, who was the artist, came through Schaefferstown around 1881. Now, he was a Swiss immigrant, he was an itinerant artist, and he did this for his bread and butter. And so he traveled from Philadelphia, basically through Montgomery County, Berks County, Lebanon County, Dauphin County, and the western counties, and ended up in Canton, Ohio, where he stayed for quite a long time. And sometime in 1886, he disappeared from there. Nobody really knew where he went, but he apparently had gotten word that he had received an inheritance from his brother in Switzerland, and so he went to Switzerland. He didn't tell anybody, but then he wrote them a letter. But he never got his inheritance. He disappeared from there. Nobody knows what happened to him. In 1901, they declared him missing without a trace. His son was supposed to get this inheritance too. He never got it either. He went missing. So it's not like anybody,
Blue-eyed sisters.
it's no foul play here, because nobody got the inheritance, and eventually it went to the state, and I think it
That's fine.
went toward like orphans or something like that. So very interesting story. Now this house still exists today, and it was owned by Daniel Mell, and if you look on that map, the little blow-up of Schaefferstown, you can find Daniel Mell on that map, and on the 1875 Atlas map as well.
Published then? You said it was, you were working on trying to publish pictures. Was this one published?
Yes. Also, there is a group out in Ohio that has formed, basically there's a Brader Museum out in Ohio, and there is a book on all of his sketches. They have gathered them all. Many are in this museum, but somehow they found out about ours in our book, and then they called us because we didn't know anything about them. And last year or the year before, they had a big exposition of his works out there.
And where will this picture hang ultimately for people to view if they want to get a closer look?
We are repainting a wall and making a special place in the Brendle Museum.
In the Brendle Museum. Thank you.
Pictures in, I happened to be in the office, and a lady called me and said, I just looked at your book with all the pictures. Do you have a copy of that Brader sketch? I said, oh, we have the original. I thought she was going to jump right through the phone. She was so excited. You have the original?
No problem
And
getting
on
it
and
on
on,
the
and told me
computer,
more
it's
about
just
it.
that
So that's when we started to get excited
projector's
about it
not
also,
choosing
because
this one.
we had no clue. So she got a hold of our book, saw it, gave us a call.
Well, it's okay.
You had sound before.
I know.
Yeah, right there.
Right below you, the speaker there.
Below the speakers.
Like that.
There you go.
Yay.
Is that Ken?
We began working on this project in September. We worked until, with Jim Forney. He, interestingly enough, one of the perks was that Jim Forney, who lives outside of Pittsburgh, the videographer, actually was from the Schaefferstown area. So he was really familiar with the area. In fact, he would stay with a friend when he came to do the filming. And he came out numerous times. As you can see, we had historians narrating particular elements of the history of Schaefferstown, and so we provided a background. When we finished the video, probably about the end of September, and had it produced, we ordered 100 copies. At this point, in less than 4 months, we've sold 85 copies, so we'll be reordering. The other thing that I think I really appreciated about this, when I run into people or after they see the video, they say, I didn't know that. Even people who live around Schaefferstown and Lebanon County don't really know the history. So we are very appreciative of the grant, because without that we couldn't have done more in marketing Schaefferstown, providing historical information, and also drawing people into Lebanon County.